my name's Isabella and welcome to my channel, Between the Pages. So right now, there's currently a washing machine running. I can hear it very loudly in here. I hope it's not too loud in the video. I really want to film. I don't know how much I'll be able to over the weekend, so I'm gonna film now and just hope that the background noise isn't too bad. Today, I'm trying a new energy drink that I've never tried before, like a new brand. It is Update. It's very minimalist. All of them look like that. They're kind of these like muted-ish colors and not a whole lot like on the front of it. Obviously there's nutrition facts. You kind of have to have that. Now on the can, it has like this little paragraph about how there are 3 molecules in caffeine and one of them is the perfect energy solution because it's what keeps you focused without the side effects, and it's out of your system in 4 hours, so you can get sleep. I'm just telling you all that. That's what's on the side of the can. I take things like that with a grain of salt because you're not supposed to lie when you're selling like food products, but like there's ways to get around it. Like even the nutrition facts, like there's ways to get around things. So when I read that, I take things like that with a grain of salt, like the probiotic sodas or whatever, like Poppy, Olippops. I drink them because I like the taste, not because I think they're any better for you. Like, I'm sure maybe they're better for you than like a Coke or a Pepsi or a Dr. Pepper because I think they're less sugar. So in some ways, they probably are better for you. But as far as them being like prebiotic, probiotic, I kind of take that with a grain of salt because, to my knowledge, the bacteria or whatever it is in it, in prebiotics, have to be alive for them to work. And I think people have done tests on the Poppies and maybe Olippops, and like half of them are dead by the time they put them in the soda. So like they're really not doing you any good, or something like that. It's been like probably a year since I saw a little study or whatever. So when they claim things like that, I take it with a grain of salt, okay? I like the taste of energy drinks, and sometimes I'm tired, so I like to drink them. So that's why I drink them. Now I will say with the flavors are a lot more simple. This one is mandarin. They had a blue raspberry and a peach one. Those are the only 3 that I saw. There may be more, I don't know. Like, it's not coconut berry or like a mixture of flavors. It's literally one flavor. This one is mandarin. Now, the reason I went with this one, I'm not the hugest blue raspberry fan when it comes to anything. Like, I've never found something that I hated blue raspberry, but it's also never been my favorite. Peach, I've only found one drink that has done peach in a way that I like, and that is the peach Red Bull. And that one has sugar in it. This is 0 sugar. I don't like the 0 sugar peach stuff that I've tried. The Alani one, I'll drink it. It's not my favorite. I liked it when I first tried it, but up against the Red Bull one, it just tastes like artificial peach. It's not that good in my opinion, like for what I like. But I've also never been the biggest fan of artificial flavored peach things. But I do love orange. I like the orange Monster, and that's 0 sugar. Although I do think that Monster does their 0 sugar very well. I love the 0 sugar Monsters. Most of the ones that I love are 0 sugar, but I don't like the 0 sugar Red Bulls. So I don't know why. Like, I can taste the 0 sugar. Like, I can taste the artificial sweetener in the Red Bull, but I can't so much in the Monster. I don't know why. So I am trying this one just to see how I like it. So I was very intrigued about it. I've been seeing it at Walmart quite a few times, and like the muted colors, it reminds me of like a dystopian. Like, this would be the energy drinks that they have in the world of Divergent. Like, if they had energy drinks, like, this is what they would look like. I don't know why I think that, but it's very like modern, futuristic. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's so like, it's a muted color. It's called Update. Like, you update devices. So I think that's why. I don't know. Anyways. Oh, okay. It does smell good though. It reminds me of the orange Monster. Oh, that's good. I don't think I can really taste the artificial sweetener that well. It tastes like, I can taste it a little bit, but it's not bad, like not in a bad way. I think with the Red Bulls, I think the problem is I've had the sugar Red Bulls, so the zero sugar doesn't taste as good. That might be my problem, because I like Alani's, I like Red Bulls, which I like the fruit juice Red Bulls too, but they don't ever have a zero sugar version, except for the mango one. The mango one, the fruit juice one, I love. Don't like the zero sugar version. So I think I'm onto something. I think it's because I haven't tried the better version of it. But this one's really good. It does taste like, it tastes like orange. I would say it tastes more like real orange maybe than the Monster one. But I can kind of taste the artificial sweetener a little bit, but it's not horrible. So it's pretty good. Now, I will be honest, unless they come out with a flavor that I think I really want to try, probably not going to be my go-to. So unless, like, whatever this said right here is true, I'm not going to start drinking it. And even then, placebo effect, who knows. But, like I said, try it for yourself, you know. I like the orange flavor. I'm probably not going to try the other flavors. I don't think they would be able to do the peach right, but who knows. So, that is it. Can you get into the video? This is the plot of Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis. This is the 4th book chronologically, and the 2nd book in publication order of the Chronicles of Narnia. So, in this book, we once again read about the Pevensies, like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. In our world's time, this book takes place a year after the events of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The 4 Pevensies are at a train station waiting to go to boarding school. They're sitting, they're talking, when one of them yells out and thinks that one of their siblings is like pulling on them. The sibling's like, no, I'm not. And then another one feels it. And then Edmund says, everyone grab hands. This is magic. I can tell. So they hold hands and they find themselves on a little island. So they see the ocean. They kind of wonder where they're at. They wonder if they're in Narnia, but it looks very secluded. There's no one around. And I think they, right off the bat, like just wade in the water for a bit. And then they start exploring. They are trying to figure out if they would be able to swim. Like, they can see the mainland far off, so they're close enough to see it. They just don't think they can swim to it. Susan is a pretty good swimmer, and they think maybe she can make it, but that's even a maybe for her, and the rest of them can't swim that well, and I don't think Lucy can swim at all. So they're stuck on this island until they can find someone or something to help them get to the mainland. So they walk around and they're looking for something they can drink and something they can eat. There's no food as far as they can see. They don't have nets to catch shrimp or fish or anything in the ocean. There's no fresh water that they can find, although 2 of them do have sandwiches in their pockets. So they split 2 sandwiches between the 4 of them. And they just keep exploring until they find an apple orchard. The orchard is enclosed by like a wall and gate. At first they think it's a garden, but then they realize that it's actually the courtyard of an old ruined castle. So they kind of look around the castle a good bit and are wondering like how long it's been since someone's lived in this castle. They wonder if this is Narnia. And they just keep looking around and they can kind of make out what everything is. And they start recalling their previous time in Narnia when they were kings and queens. And they were like, oh, this, ballroom or this great hall is very much like the one that we had. And they're just looking around. They find a well inside this castle, so they all drink. At one point, I think they finally build a fire. They're sitting by the fire. Lucy goes back to the well to drink, and she comes back with something in her hand. And it is a gold chess piece, which is very much like what they had in Narnia. It's made of pure gold and might have like gems set in it or something. But this sets them thinking like, I wonder if this is Cair Paravel. And they're like, okay, well, if it is, then this wall will have like a door in it. And they tear down like the ivy that's grown, and sure enough, there's a wooden door. They rip the door down, they go down the steps into a treasure room like they thought it would be, and they're 16 steps down, like in their own treasure room, in their own castle, and they go to the back wall where their gifts from Father Christmas would have been, and sure enough, there's their gifts. They finally realize this is Cair Paravel, like this is their castle. But that means it has to have been like hundreds of years, possibly, since they've been there. So with that realization, they do grab their gifts and they go back upstairs. And the gifts magically are perfectly fine. Although Susan does not have her horn. In The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when they got out of Narnia, they were on a hunting trip. And Susan had the horn with her, so she thinks, it dropped and lost in the woods somewhere. They lie by the fire and they go to sleep that night. The next morning when they wake up, they have apples to eat, but they kind of wish that they could catch some fish. So they go back outside on the beach, although they have nothing to catch fish with. And they realize that Cair Paravel was not an island when they lived there. It had been part of the mainland and it was on the beach. So they realize that someone has cut a channel beside Cair Paravel, separating it from the mainland, or it could just be natural erosion. We don't know, but they look out onto the channel and they see a boat with two men sitting in it, one rowing towards them, towards the little island. And as it gets closer, they see something in the bottom of the boat struggling. So they're quiet, they hide, and as it comes closer, they're hearing the men. They lift up the bundle, about to throw it over, and Peter sees that it's a dwarf, bound up in ropes. And with that, Susan fires an arrow right by one of them and intentionally misses and scares one of them. And he falls down, although he did not die. He just falls down startled, and the other man sees him startled. They both start running away, disappear onto the woods of the mainland. So I'm a little confused about this part of it, because they were close enough that they were able to save the dwarf. So they were able to wade out to the dwarf, but the men were also close enough to just abandon the boat and splashed on to the mainland. So I'm kind of confused why the children weren't able to swim. I don't know. I'm kind of confused about all of that, but I'm not here to debate it. I'm here to tell you all the plot. So all of them rushed into the water, grabbed the dwarf, grabbed the boat, and brought it up to the banks. The dwarf is very appreciative, but he's also kind of worried that they're ghosts. He's like, ghost or not, you saved my life. Very appreciative. And Lucy asks why he thinks that they're ghosts. And he says, well, everybody says that Cair Paravel is haunted, and that's why nobody will go here. And it's a threat that, if you do anything bad enough, they will, take you to this island and leave you to the ghosts. And anybody that they've done that to has never come back. But the dwarf has always wondered if they don't just, slit their throat or drown them or something. And now he knows. The kids are wanting to know why that he was supposed to be drowned. And he says he's a criminal, but it's a long story. Y'all got any breakfast? And the kids are like, we got apples, that's about it. And the dwarf's like, well, we can catch fish, so I guess I'm inviting y'all to breakfast. They had fishing tackle in the boat. So they get the fishing tackle, they get the fish, they roast it over the fire, and they sit down for a nice little chat. And the children tell him, if he tells them their story, they'll then tell them their story. Did I say that right? I don't know. Y'all get it. So the dwarf and the children sit down, and the dwarf begin explaining what's happened to him. Okay, we're back. I have my coffee. I'm sewing the flowers onto the blanket, and let's get into the rest of the story. So the dwarf starts by saying that he is a messenger for King Caspian, the true king of the old Narnians. This prompts the children to ask, who are the old Narnians? And the old Narnians are all of the talking animals and mythical creatures and the ones that believe in Aslan. And the man who is on the throne at the moment, Miraz, took the throne from Caspian, and he has been banishing these old Narnians from Narnia. Like, they still live in Narnia, but they're not allowed to openly live. Like, they're living life constantly looking over their shoulder, because if any of them are ever caught by Miraz or one of his men, they're going to be killed. But then he says, although Caspian is technically a new Narnian himself, he is a Telmarine like Miraz from a country called Telmar, but he's on the old Narnian side. That's why the old Narnians believe that he should have the throne. And with this, I'm just going to go ahead and tell y'all the story of Caspian. When Caspian was very young, both his father and his mother died. Not together. His dad died first, and then his mom died a little bit later. And because he was still a child, his uncle, Miraz, took over the throne instead of him. But Miraz didn't have any kids, so he made it very aware to Caspian. He was like, yeah, once I die, you have the throne. And Caspian didn't really care too much. He was a kid, and he loved his uncle Miraz. Like, that's who was raising him. So he didn't really care. And Miraz is married, but she's not really mentioned. She's mentioned like twice in the first chapter, so I'm not even going to give her a name. At this point in the story, Caspian is really young, like about to start being tutored for like school things, English, math, history, all that stuff. Oh, actually, the book doesn't mention that he loves Miraz, but he does mention that the one person that he loves is his nurse. So I got that wrong. But he loves his nurse. His nurse is so sweet to him and pretty much treats him like her own child. And at night, she tells him stories of the old Narnians. So she tells him the stories of the talking animals, the mythical creatures of Aslan, of the evil witch, and the 2 sons of Adam and the 2 daughters of Eve that killed her and took over the throne, and the golden years of Narnia. Tells her all of these stories. Well, Miraz pretty regularly walks with Caspian around the castle, and he's like, you know, you're gonna have the throne when I'm gone, and pretty soon we're gonna teach you this and this about it. And just talking with him, and Caspian mentions that he wishes that Narnia was like the old days, and starts telling him what he's been hearing about old Narnia, not knowing that his uncle is very much against old Narnia. And Miraz asks Caspian, where did you hear those stories? And Caspian's like, oh, from my nurse. She tells me the stories. And then after this conversation, Caspian learns that Miraz has sent Caspian's nurse away without even letting her tell Caspian goodbye. And like, this is really the lady that was raising him, you know, like, yeah, technically Miraz was, but like, she was really the one raising him, so it was just very heartless for him to do that. And he thought that he was gonna hate his new tutor, because at this time he's old enough to start being tutored and taught things, so he thinks he's gonna hate his new tutor, but he actually really likes him. But Caspian does say that he is the shortest and baddest man that he's ever seen, which is kind of funny. This tutor's name is Dr. Cornelius. So Dr. Cornelius teaches him all of the things he needs to know, math and politics probably, and everything that he would need to know to be an educated man, but also a king. So they're talking one day about history, and Dr. Cornelius tells Caspian of the first ancestor of his to come to Narnia. Caspian asks the doctor who lived in Narnia before we all came here out of Telmar. No men, or very few, lived in Narnia before the Telmarines took it. Then who did my great-great-grandsestors conquer? Whom, not who, your highness. And then he tries to change the subject, and then Caspian says, please, not yet. Wasn't there a battle? Why is he called Caspian the Conqueror if there's nobody here to fight with him? And Cornelius says, I said there were very few men in Narnia. And he looked at him with like a weird look. Caspian tries to like ask him more about it, and Cornelius says to be quiet, not to speak a word, because that's how his nurse was sent away. He said that Miraz didn't like it, and that he would have Cornelius's head cut off if he knew that he was telling Caspian about it. And then Cornelius changes the subject. But a few days later, Cornelius at the end of their lesson, tells Caspian that that night a really crazy like astrology thing's gonna happen that day, and to go to bed a bit early because Cornelius is gonna wake him up early so that they can witness it together. So Caspian does. When Cornelius wakes him up, he gives him a cloak to put on over his clothes because it's cold outside, and also so they won't be as easily seen in the dark. They climb up to the highest tower in the castle and look at this wonder of astronomy. So it's basically two planets. I guess it can be seen in the Narnian night sky. They are going to pass very close together, so close together that from Narnia looking up, it looks like they're going to hit each other. And it's something that happens like every 200 years in Narnia, or at least the last time it happened was 200 years ago in Narnia. So it is a very rare occurrence. And Cornelius says something about how the planets, they have names, and one means peace and one means either prosperity or victory or something like that. So Dr. Cornelius says that there's going to be something good happen in Narnia soon. Like that's what the passing of these two planets means for Narnia. So after the event happens, like they get the closest that they're going to each other and then start moving away, Caspian mentions that they would have been able to see it better from another tower. Cornelius says that they would have, but he chose that tower because there are 6 empty rooms beneath them and the stairs to it is locked so nobody can overhear them. So Caspian realizes that Cornelius is going to tell him what he wouldn't tell him the other day. So Cornelius tells him that the stories of old Narnia, of the talking animals and mythical creatures, they're all real, but that his race, the Telmarines, have worked over the years to silence him, and the king, talking about Miraz, does not allow them to be talked about. And Caspian says he wished that they hadn't, but then asks, why do you say my race? Aren't you a Telmarine? And Cornelius says, am I? And Caspian says, well, you're at least you're a man. And Cornelius asks again, am I? And Caspian realizes that Cornelius is a dwarf. He was so small and so fat and had such a long beard that like Caspian's like, I should have guessed it this whole time. But the Dr. Cornelius does correct him a little bit. Cornelius is not fully a dwarf. He's half dwarf, half human. So some of the dwarves have mixed with the Telmarines and have children. So he's kind of half man, half dwarf. But Cornelius is kind of shunned by the true dwarves. Like a lot of them, we'll see this later, don't kind of see him as a traitor, even though it's not his fault that he's half dwarf, half man. Cornelius then tells Caspian that the reason he's telling him all of this is because he's held these secrets for so long that he needs to tell someone, but also that once he's king, he can gather all the dwarves together, gather all the magicians together, and find a way of awakening the trees and to welcome old Narnians back into Narnia. Cornelius does say that he practices a bit of magic himself, although he's not very learned in the subject. He can do basic things, and this is a good magic, not dark magic like Jadis. This is a good magic. He also does tell Caspian about Cair Paravel and the woods, because the Telmarines are told that those woods are haunted, but Caspian tells him that it's all a lie. Sometime later, weeks, months, who knows, Caspian is awoken by Dr. Cornelius again and is told to dress in very warm clothes, to grab his sword and to cover it up with a cloak that Dr. Cornelius gives him, and to go downstairs. They go downstairs to the Great Hall, get Caspian some food, put it in a satchel, and takes him outside to where Dr. Cornelius has already gotten his horse from the stables. Caspian is very confused by all of this, but Dr. Cornelius is telling him, okay, we're going to do all these things, we're going to get all these things, you got to leave tonight, right now. Caspian is very much confused. He doesn't know what's going on. And once they get to his horse, Cornelius finally explains everything to him and says that his life is in danger and he needs to leave in order to live. and that once he leaves, he can go to Archenland because Archenland still believe in the old Narnian ways, and hopefully they can strengthen their armies and Caspian will get his rightful throne one day. But as for now, Caspian's in trouble and he needs to leave. Caspian asks why, and he says that, you're in danger, your uncle's going to kill you because he doesn't want you to have the throne. And Caspian's like, well, why now? Like, why is he trying to kill me now? And he says, well, before this, he didn't have a kid. He didn't have an heir to the throne. And he would rather a Telmarine have it than some random person. So, like, once he's gone, he doesn't really care who has the throne. But his wife just gave birth to a son tonight. So now he has an heir, and he has a reason to kill Caspian, because Caspian is technically the rightful heir. So there'll be problems later if Caspian isn't done away with. Caspian still doesn't fully understand this, and I think asks a question, and Cornelius finally tells him the real truth behind Miraz and his father. So Miraz has always been jealous of Caspian's father, his brother, for being the heir to the throne, so much so that Miraz is actually the one that killed Caspian's father. And at first, he didn't pretend to be the king. He just called himself Lord Protector. But once Caspian's mother died, he began acting more and more like a king, and even started kind of wanting to call himself king. And there were still some men that were very loyal to Caspian's father, and in turn loyal to Caspian himself. So they would have fought back against Miraz. So Miraz just killed them all. There were 4 or 5 that he straight up killed, and then 7 lords, which were, I guess, on his council or something. I don't know. They're important. They're important for later books too. And Miraz sent them overseas to go explore, and they never come back. Not a one of the 7 ever came back. So at that point, there was no one there to look after Caspian and to insist that he get the throne. So Miraz started calling himself the king and made everybody else call himself the king. And like I said earlier, he didn't care if Caspian had the throne later on, but now that he has a son, he's going to try to kill Caspian. And Caspian very much understands it now. And so he decides to leave, and Cornelius tells him that he wishes him luck and he hopes that he can see him again sometime and tell him even more stories. But now is not the time, obviously. So he wishes him luck and sends him on his way. And Caspian leaves towards the mountains and towards Archenland. I'm just drinking my morning coffee. But let's get back into the story. I feel like I've filmed across 4 different days. But Caspian leaves through the mountains towards Archenland, and as he's going, it starts raining and thundering, and it's very windy. He's just traveling through a really big storm. And Caspian, as he's going through this wooded mountainous area, he starts thinking about the stories of the trees and how he's a Telmarine, and the trees, if they're alive, maybe they can tell that I'm a Telmarine. I hope I'm not hurt, basically. And the book said something about maybe they did, because as he's going on this path, a tree fell right behind him. I think it scared his horse, and then a limb fell, or maybe he ran into a limb, knocked him off his horse, and he passed out. Caspian comes to lying on something comfortable, and he hears 3 different voices talking about him. One wants to kill him, but the others are like, well, it's too late now. We brought him into our house, so if we were to kill him now, it'd be like killing a guest. And they're arguing. Caspian's just kind of laying there. He says something to them. They're like, oh, he's awake. And one of the 3 voices stoke the fire. It brightens up the room, and he sees that there are 2 dwarves and a badger. We meet a lot of animals, and we learn a lot of names, but I'm going to try to only tell you the names that are necessary, and then the rest of them, I'll refer to them as what they are. So the badger's name is Truffle Hunter, and I believe the 2 dwarfs, there's a red dwarf and a black dwarf. The red dwarf's name is Trumpkin, and the black dwarf's name is Nickabrick. Okay? So the way that I remember this is Truffle Hunter, that one is kind of, it's a badger, okay? I don't know why. I remember his name. Trumpkin, he's a red dwarf. Kind of reminds me of Pumpkin, which is orange. And bricks, okay, they're really hard, really durable. If you hit yourself in the head with a brick, it's gonna hurt. And Nickabrick is a really, like, hardened, he's kind of mean. He doesn't fully trust Caspian throughout the rest of the story. So, like, that's kind of how I remember him. So, I'm just gonna give y'all that. It may be a little funny, but there's a method to it, okay? So, these three creatures, animals, whatever, they know he's a Telmarine. But when they learn that he's actually Miraz's nephew and is supposed to be on the throne, Nickabrick immediately, he's like, okay, we've got to kill him. Because if we let him go, he's just going to, like, tell them that we're still here in Narnia. And Caspian is like, no, I love the old Narnians. Like, I'm so happy to meet y'all because I wish Narnia was how it used to be. And when Trumpkin and Truffle Hunter hear this, they are like, okay, well, if you believe in old Narnia, we believe you should be on the throne, because they do know enough about the Telmarines that they know that Caspian's supposed to be on the throne. So Truffle Hunter and Trumpkin back him 100%. They're like, you're the true king, we're gonna call you our king. And Nickabrick, still not the biggest fan of him, but he kind of goes along with it, begrudgingly goes along with it. So after Caspian gets better, maybe the next day, I don't really know what happens, Trumpkin, Truffle Hunter, and Nickabrick set about introducing Caspian to their friends in Narnia and introducing him to the other creatures and animals in Narnia. Now, before I get to who they're introducing him to, I want to mention that Nickabrick asks if he should introduce him to some ogres and hags, and Trumpkin says no. That is important. Now, the ogres and the hags, they are the bad guys. Like, they were on the witch's side in the war. Keep that in mind for later. Caspian is introduced to all manner of mythical creatures and talking animals. He was introduced to 7 dwarves that were all brothers, and dwarves are traditionally blacksmiths. At least in Narnia, I think in mythical stories, they're blacksmiths. And they give Caspian 2 dwarves and Truffle Hunter all kinds of armor, mail shirts, I think gives Caspian a sword, all kinds of things for war, okay? They meet a squirrel called Pattertwig, and I think twig, trees, squirrels live and play in trees. So that's how I remember that. He is introduced to a centaur, and I don't know if it gave the centaur a name. I'm pretty sure it did. I can't remember it. But later on, that same centaur comes into play along with another one. And I'm just going to say the centaur, and then it's just going to be the same one because I can't remember his name. So he met a centaur, and the centaur, I believe, is the one that was like, okay, well, we've got to get this throne for you. And Caspian hadn't thought of it until that point. He was like, oh, I am the rightful heir to the throne. And the old Narnians started calling him King Caspian, but he never really thought, like, maybe I should fight for the throne. And the centaur was like, well, why are you dressed in mail shirts with, like, armor and swords if you're not going to fight? So after that, they got a lot more serious about the whole deal. And we also meet perhaps one of my favorite talking creatures across all of the books, a mouse named Reepicheep. I love Reepicheep. And every time I've reread Prince Caspian, I always forget that we meet him in Prince Caspian. I love Reepicheep so much. I don't know why. But it's like, he's a mouse, okay? He's a talking mouse. And although he's so small, him and the rest of the mice are so valiant and so courageous when it comes to fighting. Like, they would be put on the front lines if they could. Like, I love them so much. I love Reepicheep. Anyways, we do meet Reepicheep. I think that's really the only ones that I really need to name. So they set a date for like 3 days in the future to meet in a certain clearing to talk about building their army and getting the throne to Caspian. So that day arrives, and they're talking when one of the animals that has a good sense of smell a human, and everyone immediately gets quiet. I think 2 of the creatures go to check it out, and it ends up being Dr. Cornelius, because remember, he's half human, half dwarf. At first, I believe it was mainly Nickabrick is like, oh, he's half human, half dwarf. He's a traitor. Don't let him. And Caspian straight up was like, no, he's my friend. If you're not for him, you're not for me. And you can just leave. Once again, Nickabrick quiet. But throughout all of this, Nickabrick is very not for Caspian fully. Like, it's kind of a weird situation. Also, I forgot to tell you, Dr. Cornelius, when he sent Caspian away the first time, he gave him Queen Susan's horn. Dr. Cornelius spent years of his life trying to track down the horn of Susan and told him that whenever you blow it, help will come to you. Just so y'all know. So they do have Susan's horn. So Dr. Cornelius came to Caspian and he was like, okay, I'm here, but it's not really with the best of news. You've been found out because when you fell off of your horse, it returned to the stables and it alerted Miraz that Caspian had gone, and they've been searching for him since then, and that I think they're getting pretty close. So they decide to pick their own battlegrounds as opposed to letting the enemy find them where they're at. So they decide to go to Aslan's Howl. Now, Aslan's Howl is what we know as the Stone Table in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but it's been hundreds, if not thousands of years in Narnian time since the Pevensies have reigned. So a mound has been built on top of the stone table. And as I picture it, it's over like the whole field. Like, remember, there was like a big field where the stone table was. Well, now a mound has been built over the top of it. So you go into the mound and it's just tunnels like you're underground. And there's like little rooms and chambers off to the side of these tunnels in this mound, and one room does contain the stone table, which is now broken in half because of what happened in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So they decide to go there, and that's where they're gonna have their battles. So they go there, and Miraz's army find them, and they're having battles on and off, and every time there's a battle, Prince Caspian, the true old Narnian army, is getting beaten worse and worse. Even if they win a fight, they're running out of food and they are running out of people. And it's just not very good for the Narnian army at the moment. So Caspian, Dr. Cornelius, Trumpkin, Truffle Hunter, and Nickabrick all go to the room with the stone table. Like, that's their like war room meeting ground. Like, that's where they talk about the battle. And they decide to blow the horn. Nickabrick doesn't believe in Aslan or the horn or anything. He thinks it's a bunch of fairy tales. Trumpkin is kind of in the middle. Like, he doesn't know that he fully believes in Aslan, but he's more willing to try than Nickabrick is. Like, Nickabrick completely writes it off. Trumpkin doesn't really know if he believes in Aslan or the... Like, he kind of believes in the stories of the Pevensies, but he also doesn't know that the horn is actually going to call them or Aslan. Because, like, that's the theory. They think that when they blow the horn, it's either going to call Aslan or the Pevensey children themselves to help. Although they don't refer to them as children because they know them as the adults that were reigning in the stories of the Golden Years of Narnia. And Truffle Hunter, he is 100%, he believes in Aslan, believes in the children, and believes something's going to happen. So, like, we have, like, the 3 stages of, like, belief and unbelief with those 3. And Caspian, he is very much willing to believe in it all because he grew up hearing these stories and he wants to believe it. And Dr. Cornelius, he also believes in it. So, they're debating on blowing the horn, and they finally decide to, but they're really banking on the horn bringing the Pevensey children, but they don't know where the children are going to end up. There's, I guess, 3 possible areas that they could pop up where they're at. They could pop up at the lamppost where they first came into Narnia, or they could pop up at Cair Paravel, their palace. So, obviously, the army is there at Aslan's house / the stone table, so if they show up there, grand, that's fine, that's amazing. But they need to send someone to the lamppost and to Cair Paravel to retrieve the kings and queens of Narnia if they show up. So Trumpkin himself decides to be the one to go to Cair Paravel, and they send Pattertwig the squirrel to the lamppost. So they set out. It's about a 2-day journey, I think, for Trumpkin, or like a day and a half. So they decide for Trumpkin and Pattertwig to leave that night, and then early the next morning, Caspian will blow the horn. So they leave, and Trumpkin makes it a little ways, and like still be able to hear the horn. Remember, the horn is magical, so like the sound of it probably reaches a good long while, but Trumpkin doesn't hear the horn. Caspian's supposed to blow the horn at like 8 o'clock, or like very early in the morning, and he doesn't blow it until like almost afternoon. So Trumpkin doesn't really know what's happening there, but on his journey to Cair Paravel, he gets intercepted by some of Miraz's army. He can't fight them off, so he's taken by them and put on the boat, and that's how he ended up at Cair Paravel. So the dwarf that the Pevensey children met with is Trumpkin. Trumpkin is like, but like when he concludes the story, he's like, well, you know, I guess it didn't work. We can go on now. And then the children are like, what do you mean? We're here. Like, we are the kings and queens of Narnia. And he's like, yeah, but y'all are kids. Like, y'all can't do much. And they're a little, like, taken aback by that. But instead of, like, trying to talk to him, Peter and Edmund decide to challenge the dwarf to a fencing match. Edmund fights him, and he wins. And then Susan challenges him to an archery match. She wins. So this convinces Trumpkin that they are indeed the kings and queens of Narnia, and they're still just as strong as they were last time, even though they're children again. So with that, they decide to head towards Aslan's Howl. They go by boat for much of the first day, and Lucy is too short to help row, so the rowing is split up between the rest of them, mainly the men. And they row for most of that day, of day one. I'm not going to explain the geography of it all, because it's hard for me to explain, and y'all can read or listen to it for yourselves. But I am going to explain what happens on the different days of the journey. So on day one, most of it is spent rowing, and then they finally get on land, and they think it's going to take them about 2 days to get to Aslan's Howl, because it took Trumpkin, I think, a day and a half, but they have to watch out for different sentries of Miraz's army. So they have different landmarks that they're trying to get to. Like I said, not going to get into it, but they finally get on land, the area that they want to, and they start heading towards the next landmark, wherever it is. Now, I believe it is on day one that they hear something following them. They're not sure what it is, when all of a sudden a bear jumps out at them, and Trumpkin actually gets the bear before Susan, but it's because Susan was afraid that it was a talking bear. But Trumpkin said, no, I saw the face and I heard the growl. That was not a talking bear. Then Trumpkin kind of tells them about how some of the animals have gone wild and lost their ability to speak because they've gone wild from what the Silmarils have done to Narnia. So they keep going. They finally make a camp for the night and try to go to sleep, but Lucy is not able to sleep. So she gets up and she's walking among the trees, and she kind of feels like they're moving even though there's not a breeze. So then she starts talking to him, and she's like, please just wake up. And she kind of like feels something, and then it just vanishes. So it's almost like she said all the right words except for one, or she said one wrong word, like they almost woke up, but just something wasn't right. So she lays back down and she goes to sleep. Day 2, I believe, and I could still have some of these things mixed up, but day 2, they get to where they're meant to go, or where they think they're supposed to be, but they can't find like this certain landmark. And Trumpkin's like, well, think about it. It could have been hundreds of years since y'all have been here. You remember this river, but now the river that we're going beside, it's like a big ravine and then a river at the bottom. And Trumpkin's like, this could be the same river that you're talking about, but over hundreds of years, a landslide or an earthquake or something could have dropped, like made the land drop down, or it could just be erosion from these hundreds of years. And then Peter's like, okay, you're right. So at this point, they're torn between whether they should go up or down. Like, I guess the trail splits, or they have to, like, after making this realization, they're like, okay, we have two choices. We can go up, we can go down. At that moment, Lucy looks up, and she sees Aslan ahead of her. And she's like, oh my gosh, it's Aslan. Y'all, look, there's Aslan. Nobody else can see him. And Lucy's like, he's telling us to come on. Like, this is the way we're supposed to go. And nobody sees him. And they're like, I don't know, Lucy. They all take a vote, and everyone is on Peter's side to go down except for Edmund. Edmund takes Lucy's side, and he's like, look, when we first found Narnia, we thought she was lying, and I was the worst out of everybody, but we should have believed her that time. I'm going to believe her this time. So Edmund sides with Lucy, but Trumpkin, he sides with Peter because he's the High King, and he says, you're the High King of Narnia, I side with you and everything. And Susan goes with them too, so they decide to go down. So they travel all day. Okay, this is like early morning, afternoon at the latest, okay? So they travel the rest of the way down. They get to the landmark that they want to get to, but it's taken over by Miraz's army. And they're actually chased by two of Miraz's army. So they're going back the way they came, that they just traveled all day. And I think they get back to that little crossroads where they were deciding, or maybe a bit further up, and that's where they camp for the night. They go back to sleep. Lucy either goes to sleep and wakes up in the middle of the night, or she can't sleep again. She gets up, she's walking among the trees, and then she'll see a tree will look like it's human form, and then she looks at it for a second too long, and it turns back into a tree. And, like, she keeps seeing these different trees, and it looks like the trees are dancing, like they would do when she was queen. So she's dancing along these trees, she's going further past them, and she sees Aslan. And she hugs him and kisses him, and realizes that she was in the wrong earlier. She realized that she should have broke apart from the rest of them and should have followed Aslan, because she knew that's what was right. And she tries to ask him how it would have worked out all right if she had just left everybody else, but he wouldn't tell her. Aslan tells her to wake the rest of her siblings and Trumpkin and to take them up higher. And she doesn't want to do it at first, but she agrees. And so she wakes them all up, tells them that she's seen Aslan. The rest of them can't see him yet, but they need to trust her. And if they don't follow her, she's going to go on alone. So they all get up, kind of grudgingly, and they follow Lucy. And they can't see Aslan, so they have faith in Lucy. Lucy's watching Aslan, but the rest of them are watching Lucy. And they are going along this path, and they even get to some points where, like, there's a path down the ravine so they can get to where they want to, that they wouldn't have been able to see, because, like, unless you're looking over the edge, it looks like you're just going to drop off the side of the ravine or cliff or whatever. And Lucy goes down there following Aslan, and they follow her. And Edmund is right behind Lucy, and he sees, like, a shadow, and he's like, Lucy, I see Aslan's shadow, but where is he? And she says, he's right there with his shadow. After a little while, Edmund starts to see Aslan, and then I think Peter's next. He thinks he sees something, and then it goes away, and then he finally can see the line, and then I think it's Susan next. I don't know. I know Edmund's first after Lucy. I don't know about the other two until they finally get to Aslan's howl early morning. And that's where all four of the Pevensies can finally see him, and Trumpkin can see him too. And he apologizes because he had said something about Aslan earlier about not believing in him. And Aslan scares him a good bit, but at the end, they make up. Aslan tells Peter and Edmund and Trumpkin to draw their swords and to go into the mound because they have something to deal with in there. They do. Susan and Lucy stay with Aslan, and a great noise, it says, rings out like a horn almost, and it scares Miraz's army. It's heard like all over Narnia. And then a big black mist or sea looking thing starts coming towards them, and it is the spirits of the trees and of the water. So they're awoken. Well, the water, they have to stay in water, I think. They can't leave water, but they can like stand up, and they take on a human form, if I'm remembering correctly. But the trees do move around. So the trees have been awoken by Aslan. Peter, Edmund, and Trumpkin enter Aslan's house. They make their way through the passages until they get outside the chamber that holds the stone table, and they hear voices inside. They hear 4, I think, that they know, and 2 they don't. And as they're talking, Trumpkin tells them who is who. So they hear Caspian's voice, Dr. Cornelius's voice, Nickabrick's voice, and Truffle Hunter's, and then there's 2 voices that they don't hear. And at the moment, they're discussing the blowing of the horn and just things that are happening. So Peter, Edmund, and Trumpkin just kind of stand outside and listen for the moment. So they're talking, and Caspian and I think Cornelius and possibly Truffle Hunter want to wait a little bit longer, because Caspian did have to wait longer to blow the horn, and it's because Miraz's army attacked them again, and Caspian blew it the minute that he had a little break to blow the horn. So they want to keep waiting, and they're like, okay, well, if they showed up at Cair Paravel, it's going to take them a couple days to get here. And Nickabrick mainly is the one that's opposing waiting, and he's saying, well, Trumpkin could have died on his way up here. Like, he could have been intercepted, or on the way back. Like, we just don't know that it even happened. And Nickabrick, like I said, very much against the fact that it even worked. So, Trumpkin is the one who has brought these 2 strangers in, and they decide to hear them out because Trumpkin's like, you know, we don't even know if Aslan's real. We don't know if the horn even works. Like, there's just so much we don't know. And the 2 friends of Nickabrick's are introduced. There is an old woman who says that she's just a poor woman, has hardly anything to her name, but she has dabbled in magic like Cornelius, Dr. Cornelius himself. Remember, Dr. Cornelius uses good magic that is for Aslan, okay? Keep that in mind. And the other voice that starts talking, he kind of talks in a riddle a little bit, and it's kind of creepy and weird. I'm not going to read it, but it's a little creepy and weird. Keep that in mind. So the main 3, the good 3, and then the questionable 3, we'll say that, okay? So the good 3 is Caspian, Cornelius, Truffle Hunter. The questionable 3 are Nickabrick and his 2 friends. So the good 3 are like, okay, why did you bring them here? Like, what are you talking about? And Nickabrick's like, well, if you listen back to the stories, the White Witch vanquished Aslan. Like, remember that, right? Like, in the stories, she killed him. She got the better of Aslan, which we know Aslan allowed it to happen, but that's besides the point. She was able to kill Aslan. And they're like, yeah, but the stories say that he come back to life and killed her in the battle. And we know that the Pevensey children got the throne. They won the battle, they got the throne. And Nickabrick said, yeah, but there's no stories of him after he supposedly come back to life. Like, that could have just been made up by the Narnians, and it's very easy for a king to establish himself. Like, they were saying, like, Aslan established the Pevensies as a kings and queens of Narnia, but they said if somebody just won a battle, it's very easy to establish yourself. So he's saying that it was actually a lie that Aslan come back to life, and that it was just all made up, that the White Witch was actually more powerful than Aslan. So Nickabrick's like, well, why don't we call on the White Witch? Like, she killed Aslan, we can call on her. And the good three are like, but she's dead. Like, how can you call back someone who's dead? And that's when the old woman speaks up, and she's like, oh, well, I have magic that can bring her back. And, like, she starts to draw a circle, and then I think it's Cornelius, maybe Caspian, one of the good three, they're like, oh, we know what y'all are now. You're a hag. And the man is actually a werewolf. So a big fight breaks out. This is when Peter, Edmund, and Trumpkin rush in, and the light was actually, like, I think a lantern was knocked over, so it's complete darkness. Caspian's bitten by this werewolf. But after everything settles down, Edmund thinks that he's sitting on Nick-a-Brick and he's still alive. He's like, I got Nick-a-Brick, but he's still alive. And Trumpkin's like, you're sitting on me. It's me you're sitting on. So somebody lights the lantern, lights it back up. The hag's dead. Her head has been cut off. The werewolf is dead. And he's mid-transformation. So his head is a werewolf and the rest of his body is a man. So he's mid-transformation. And Nick-a-Brick is dead. So they apologize for Nick-a-Brick. They're upset about it, you know, but he was kind of always against them, and he, as you can see, was more on the evil's side than the good side. So they decide to just throw the hag and the werewolf in a pit, but they do give Nick-a-Brick to the dwarves so that he could be buried in the manner of the dwarves. And after that, Caspian sits down with Peter and Edmund, Truffle Hunter, Trumpkin, Cornelius, and they all sit down for breakfast together. Nearing the end of breakfast, Peter comes up with the idea to challenge Miraz to a duel, and that be like the end all of the war. Whoever wins, they're the ones that get the throne. But Caspian has been wounded in one of the past battles, so Peter is going to fight in his stead. He writes out a nice long message, and Edmund takes it for him to Miraz's camp, along with a centaur and I think a bear maybe. So they go to Miraz's army, and Edmund brings this challenge to him. Now, I want to note that two of King Miraz's trusted advisors, like ones that fought to get him on the throne, went behind Caspian's father's back, went behind people's back, like got him on the throne. They're talking and discussing the matter. They haven't been called into Miraz's tent yet for counsel, but they're Miraz's closest, most trusted advisors. They know that they're going to be called in there, and they devise a little plan. These two men know Miraz well, and they know that he's going to plan to say no, but they want him to say yes, because if he wins the duel, that's good, that's great. The Telmarines get to keep Narnia, and they win. If Miraz loses, then those two can take over the throne. Like, they want Miraz to die, and then they'll still wage battle against the old Narnians, and they can take the throne. Because they're like, well, we helped him get on the throne, and nothing good has come of it. Like, he hasn't awarded us in any way. So they are very sly about this decision. So Miraz calls them in there, asks their opinion, and they very sneakily manipulate the conversation and manipulate Miraz's feelings towards it. Like, they're like, well, we think you should deny it because, you know, you're getting old and we'd hate for you to lose. Like, that would just be a hit to your pride. I forget what all they say, but they really play into his pride. At the end of it, Miraz is like, you know what? I was going to deny. I had some good excuses, but just because y'all said that, I'm going to accept it. So he calls Edmund back in and he accepts. I think the duel is set for either later that day, the next day. It doesn't really matter. They set out a little dueling ground. They enclose it with ropes. Both armies are all together, fighting, cheering for their side. Miraz and Peter enter the ring. They start dueling, and I'm not going to go into the details. It was very exciting to read, in my opinion. At one point, Peter kind of gets injured, and they call for a timeout to rest. Both sides go to rest, and Peter's just like strained his shoulder, so they tied up real tight, and he says he can manage. And just to show how evenly the two sides were matched, I can't think of a better term right now, but Peter tells Edmund to give his goodbyes to people in Narnia and people at home if he doesn't make it, because this fight is a fight to the death, or until someone's so badly injured that they surrender. So they go back out there, they fight until Miraz gets knocked down, and they think he's about to get up, and Peter's not going to stab him in the back while he's laying down. That wouldn't be very gentlemanly or knightly of him. And he is a high king, and he very much deserved the throne, although Miraz would have absolutely stabbed him in the back if the roles were reversed. Anyways, Miraz is laying on the ground, but he does not get back up. He's still breathing. You can tell he's still breathing, but he just doesn't get back up. At this point, two of Miraz's trusted advisors yell out something, basically saying that Peter cheated and stabbed him in the back while he was down, although Peter did no such thing. And the two of his trusted advisors jump in the ring. A third one comes over the side, and all three of them rush at Peter, and he would have lost if one of them had not stopped to stab Miraz in the back and made sure that he was dead. After that, the Telmarines are trying to call out for everyone to start fighting the old Narnians, but the trees start coming towards the army to join the battle, and they get scared and they run. A little side note that I didn't explain before: when Peter, Edmund, and Trumpkin went inside Aslan's house to help Caspian, Susan and Lucy went with Aslan, and Aslan woke up the trees, and they had a big celebration. I didn't go into it because it's not that big of a deal, but I do love reading it still because it just shows the whimsy of Narnia. But that is important information, sort of, for what's coming next. Also, we did learn earlier that Bermuda is a town, and it has been fortified by the Telmarines. So while the Telmarine army are running from the old Narnians, specifically the trees, they are going towards Bermuda. And if they can just get inside the village, they can close the gates and they can fight from the village of Bermuda. When they get there, they see that there was a bridge that was right there, and it is no longer there. They're scared. They're like, what's happening? Where did the bridge go? And they are terrified of moving water. The Telmarines are terrified of moving water, like they're scared of the deep forest, which I found kind of funny because where the bridge was, it's shallow enough for you to wade through it. But they built a bridge over it anyways. But if you can imagine an alternate world where the waters and the trees can come alive, yeah, if I was an intruder trying to kill old Narnia, I would probably be scared of running water too, because that's where the spirits of the water live and they can come alive. But it's still funny to like hear that they're scared of running water. So when they get there, they see that the bridge is no longer there, and they're pretty much like taken over by the old Narnians. Although I don't think the old Narnians kill them, they just take them as prisoners. And this is when it's explained exactly what happened that morning with Aslan and why Aslan wasn't at the duel between Peter and Miraz, although they wanted him there. Early that morning, Aslan woke Susan and Lucy and told them that they had things to do. They get up, they see that all the trees are moving about as well, and they head towards Bermuda. When they get to the river outside of the village, like separating them from the village, the water like puts on its human form and greets Aslan and asks if Aslan would take his chains off. And with that, Aslan instructs the trees, and there's some other creatures along with the trees that help tear the bridge down. So they cross in the shallow waters into the village of Bermuda, and it takes time to tell of how they basically liberated the village. They went to the various schools and houses and basically got rid of anything that wasn't Narnian. Like, there were some schools where the Narnian children were being forced to sit in a classroom, which is very much against Narnia, apparently. And they invited everyone to come with them. Most people ran away. Some did join them. Some children, a teacher joined them. But at one point, they do come to a little hut where a little boy is crying outside. Aslan asks the boy what's wrong. He says that his aunt is dying inside and he's very sad about it. So Aslan, he can't even fit in the house, so he like sticks his head in and then like shakes the house off. So the lady is just left lying in her bed in like open air. But anyways, it does mention that she is a little woman and she looks like she has dwarf blood in her. So she'd be half dwarf, half human, like Dr. Cornelius. But she's very sick, and Aslan somehow makes her better. I don't know if he like breathes on her. I don't know what happens. But when she sees Aslan, she's like, oh, I knew the stories were true. And Aslan asks her to come with him, and she agrees, and she rides on the back of Aslan. They continue liberating Bermuda until they eventually get back to the old Narnian army, or maybe that's when the Telmarines get to Bermuda and they see it going on. I'm kind of confused. I don't remember exactly what happened, but at the end of it all, the old Narnians are happily taking back over Narnia, and the Telmarine army is put under lock and key in Bermuda. So they close the gates, lock them up, but they do feed them, and they're actually really nice to them. And Aslan tells them that they can stay in Narnia if they want to, but if they want to go back where they come from, because they're not originally from Narnia, Aslan will send them if they don't want to stay in Narnia, and they'll just come to this certain area on a certain day. But before that happens, Aslan puts Caspian on the throne. He's given him a big speech about being a good king when a procession of mice come up to Aslan, and they're carrying a stretcher, a mouse-sized stretcher, and on it is a little bundle of fur, and it is all that is left of Reepicheep. And although Reepicheep is still alive, he is more dead than alive, the book says. Aslan instructs Lucy to use her vial. She does, and Reepicheep eventually jumps up, and he's thanking Aslan when he realizes he still doesn't have a tail. He asks Aslan if he can have his tail back, and they go back and forth. Aslan is asking why he needs one, and Reepicheep says that he can live and eat and breathe and serve his king, but without a tail, he basically doesn't have his pride. Like, the tail of a mouse is a mouse's grace, their pride. Like, it's a big part of who they are. And Aslan says, well, sometimes I wonder if maybe it causes you too much pride. And they go back and forth until all of the other mice draw their swords. Aslan asks why, and one of the other mice responds that they will cut off their tails if the high mouse, Reepicheep, has to go around without one himself. And because of this, because they are so loyal to the high mouse, Aslan gives Reepicheep his tail back and says that he gives it back because they're so loyal, and because I forget exactly what they say. I wish I had the book with me so I could read it, but it does mention how the mice were given the ability to talk when they helped free Aslan of the cords that were binding him to the stone table back in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Remember, they weren't talking mice when they chewed the cords off of Aslan on the stone table. And I love this part so much, that it mentions that they were given the ability to speak because they were so nice to Aslan and freed him from the stone table. I don't know why I love that so much. I love it. I love it so much. Anyways, so Reepicheep is given his tail back. It's a happy day. Fast forward to the day that the Telmarines are to go back where they came from. That sounds mean, but like in a nice way. Everyone meets up, the old Narnians with the Telmarines, and Aslan explains to them that the ones that want to can stay and live happily in Narnia, and a lot of them do, especially the younger ones who were being told the stories of old Narnia. They were very excited that old Narnia was real and it wasn't just a story, and that they could live peacefully with the old Narnians. But a lot of the older ones, or the ones that were in power under Miraz, they wanted to leave, and they continuously were just talking bad of Aslan and saying that if they stay, he's going to end up eating them. So we learn where the Telmarines actually came from. They come from another country in Narnia called Telmar, although they don't know where that is anymore. But from there, they actually came from our world. So I think what happened is that their people inhabited an island somewhere in our world, and pirates came to that world, basically like killed and pillaged the world, and the few that survived went deeper into the island and found an entry point, I guess, to Narnia from our world. Kind of like the wardrobe, I guess, and that's how they ended up in Narnia. They made a home for themselves in Telmar and then went to Narnia and took over, I think is kind of what happened. But he told them that if any of them want to leave, they can go back to the island. Now it's uninhabited and they can make a good life for themselves. They're all kind of distrustful of Aslan, but one Telmarine does raise his hand and say that he'll be the first to go. And because he volunteers to be the first to go, Aslan tells him that he would basically have a good life. After this, the rest of them are like, hey, we're not going to trust you unless you send one of yours in there first. And at this point, Peter and Susan tell Edmund and Lucy that they are meant to go. And this is what Aslan was talking to them about earlier that day. They go back into the woods where their school clothes were hidden. They quickly change. And this is where Peter and Susan tell Edmund and Lucy that Aslan told them that they're not going to come back again because they're getting too old for Narnia. And Edmund and Lucy are very sad about that. And Peter tells them that by what Aslan was saying, he thinks that they will be back. And Lucy asks him if he'd be able to handle not coming back to Narnia. And Peter says that he thinks he can. It's hard to explain, but he says that when Edmund and Lucy's time comes to no longer come to Narnia, they'll understand. So they rejoin the group, and them, along with all the Telmarines, hold hands and form a line and all walk into the doorway together, and they're back in the train station, headed for their next term of school. And that is where we end the story. I don't have the book with me, as I said earlier, but with this story, there's not that many like big things that I can talk about, like similarities between Prince Caspian and the Bible or our world. I know that I go into it with Grace Lee, and y'all will see that video after all these plot summaries come out. I want to say that we did mention, I'm pretty sure it was this book, that it's kind of similar to letting sin take over your life, maybe, or just take over the world in general. Like, old Narnia was almost eradicated because outsiders come in and took over Narnia. And I want to say Grace Lee and I kind of equated, I think is the right word, that to letting sin take over your life. And I don't remember exactly how we discussed it. I haven't gone back and watched the footage since we filmed it, like almost a year ago. I believe it was in June that we filmed it, so it has indeed almost been a year. But yeah, it was just another really great story. I love that old Narnia was once again put on the throne, so to say. I mean, Caspian was put on the throne, but old Narnia now has the rule over Narnia. I really love this book. I think I put it at number 3 on my list. It's 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which is the next one, is number 2, and this one is number 3. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this ending very short because I really can't think of that many things at the moment. I haven't put much thought into it as I did the other ones, so I guess we'll just leave it at whatever is said in the future videos when I talk with Casty and Grace Lee. So yeah, that is it. I hope y'all enjoyed the video.